We have a very interesting topic on smartphone addiction, role of parents, and best practices. For the second session, I would like to invite our chairpersons on the dais, Dr. Sabitra Malhotra and Dr. K. Sanjibala Devi. First of all, I would like to introduce Dr. Sabitra Malhotra, ma'am. Ma'am is a Life President, Indian Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health, former Dean PGI MER Chandigarh, former Professor and Head Department of Psychiatry, PGI MER Chandigarh. She has also received 27 academic awards for excellence in research, including the Tilak Benkoba Rao Oration Award, ICMR, also honored by the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. May I now introduce our second chairperson, Dr. K. Sanjibala. She is working as a professor and head Department of Psychiatry, Jennings, Imphal. Ma'am is one of the first lady psychiatrists in Manipur and one of the pioneers in the field of substance abuse and intravenous drug uses, and has worked in collaboration with Manipur State AIDS Control Society. Now I would like to hand over the session to our chairpersons. Request one of the chairpersons kindly introduce the speaker.
Thank you very much for this introduction, and I welcome Dr. Shanti Bala on the dais with me as co-chair, and it's my pleasure that I am chairing the session in which Dr. Shekhar Seshadri is presenting, and he's going to talk about parenting styles and skills and guidelines. Dr. Shekhar Seshadri needs no introduction actually to participants in India. He's a professor of child psychiatry at NIMHANS, Bangalore. And not only that he's an expert child psychiatrist, but he's an activist, he's an author, he's involves himself in a great amount of advocacy and involved in community and school mental health programs and juvenile justice and child abuse and gender and sexuality issues. So it's a very wide range of interests that he pursues. And it's a great pleasure always to listen to him. His presentations are always extremely powerful, emphatic, and persuasive. Shekhar, you and the chair. This session today is being chaired by two women psychiatrists. Okay, so the child psychiatry arena, we do have a very small number of psychiatrists actually working, and I'm very pleased today to be with Dr. Shanti Bala. Dr. Shanti Bala, if you would like to say some comments now, and you can invite Dr. Shekhar.
Thank you, Dr. Savita. The speaker is a well-known child psychiatrist, and I think we'll be so enlightened to have him. He needs no introduction as himself, and we might as well start the presentation so that we can be enlightened soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this honor. Lovely to meet you, Dr. Shanti Bala, online. Savita has always been kind, affirming, accommodating, and it has been my privilege in my entire career to have so many occasions to interact with her and share my ideas and the enthusiasm and passion that we jointly experience as far as child mental health is concerned. Before I go to slide share, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me. Thank you very much, Kshitij, for your personal interest in this invitation, and thank you very much for the entire organizing group out there. I want to connect to something that my dear colleague Manoj mentioned, and the issues that it raised on chat, and I would like to allude to two particular issues because they connect very deeply to the idea of parenting. One was about very young children, and one was about acting out behaviors when adolescents respond with resentment and rebellion and aggression to any kind of approach on the part of the parents to control and modulate. Now, please go back to what Manoj emphasized. The recommendations from JAMA Pediatrics, from American Psychological Association, and many other bodies is very clear for preschoolers. Not more than 1 to 2 hours of screen time, and that too not continuously, because the average attention span of a 3-year-old is just 15 minutes. So you break it up into, and how in the reality of COVID and the fact that their schools are closed, in some places they have started, but in others they haven't. How do you form new routines and new rituals to tide over this time? Because COVID is not going to go for another 1 or 2 years. And we don't know what the situation will be. Even if 27 crore samples of vaccines come, what the rest of the 100 crore of the country will do is an arguable question. The other is about older children and the way they respond, and a question, therefore, of democratic decision-making within families and an agreement between families so that the whole issue of aggressive rebellion and resentment that spills over into parent-adolescent relationships are taken care of. Having said that, let me go to screen share and come to the major context of what I would like to bring to your attention. The issue of smartphone addiction, which is one form of different forms of behavioral addictions, and what would be the role of parents in best practices, is the issue of concern here. Now, conceptually, smartphone addiction has been defined as a psychological state in which mental and emotional states are I beg your pardon, are altered, and scholastic, occupational, and social interactions are impaired by the overuse of the smartphone. This is the NIA 2011 definition. Literature describes 3 styles of parental mediation: restrictive mediation, instructive mediation, and co-viewing. A little word on co-viewing. There's a difference between processed experience and unprocessed experience. We cannot wish the digital world away. It had come to stay even before COVID came, if you look at online teaching platforms and so on. The difference between processed viewing and unprocessed viewing, particularly for very young children, is this. A very young child is sitting in front of the TV screen, no one is there, or a smartphone is making some sense of it. A parent is sitting next to the child, but is processing that information to say, "Arey, wo dekho, he fell down. Oh, wo dekho, he's drinking a glass of water." So the image, through the use of interaction and language, is converted into information, and the information is converted into knowledge, rather than remaining an amorphous visual image. In restrictive mediation, parents set specific hours or forbid a particular program for their child. Now, this is problematic, particularly with adolescents. What the American Academy of Pediatrics suggests is that parents should establish a family home plan for all media of its smartphone use is one. And this plan is democratically made. So one of the issues of parenting, particularly because of the COVID reality, is to engage in this kind of discussion and negotiation to reach a home plan. Let's look at some literature. Does parental control really work with smartphone addiction? This is a very interesting journal, my friends. It's the Journal of Addictions Nursing, and there's some wonderful literature here. Now, what this study did was, other than examining the relationship between parental characteristics, age, gender, psychological factors like depression, they really look to determine whether parental control is associated with the lower incidence of smartphone addiction. And this was, 10 to 12-year-olds. Most of these participants owned a smartphone, and the percentage of risky smartphone use was 12%. And while 3 variables were significantly associated with smartphone addiction scores, age, depression, and parental control, the more parental control perceived by the student, the higher the smartphone addiction score. But what is more important is this, that control-oriented managing by parents of children's smartphone use is not very effective and may actually exacerbate smartphone addiction. So if we are speaking about parenting styles, control-oriented management is not a good way to go forward. Restrictive perceived parental controls, in other words, leads to conflict between parents and children and has no effect on prevention of smartphone addiction. A lot of this literature, friends, comes from Korea. Manoj will join me in endorsing this, that a lot of literature on smartphone use, digital stuff, is surprisingly from a very small group of workers in Korea. Limiting usage time of smartphone can exacerbate academic impairment, and active management is more effective. For examples, parents explaining to and discussing with their children the pros and cons of smartphone use. Explaining and discussing. And explaining and discussing is predicated on actually establishing good relationships and communication. So it's not even about smartphone use time or problem use. It's about the background of a good relationship and communication and an actual discussion and explanation between parents and children, which lead these children then to have an open mind and voluntarily describing their behaviors to their parents. Of course, the American Academy of Pediatrics does say that parents and family members need to monitor adolescent addictions to use of all media, not just in smartphone. This particular paper on social implications of children's smartphone addiction and the role of support networks in social engagement, which appeared in the Journal of Behavioral Addictions, in 2018, reinterprets smartphone addiction as a social problem stemming from a lack of offline social networks, all the more so in COVID, and resulting in a decline of social engagement. This research also suggests that parents may play an important role in feelings of security and support. For having satisfaction from the relationship may actually prevent children's internet addiction by diminishing their level of social anxiety. How do we do this? We do this by engaging a relationship by which children and adolescents are able to articulate the following experiences, and these are called the full measures of parental networks. How do you establish a relationship? How do you establish rituals and activities and experiences and communication in that relationship, whereby the child says, I talk with my parents a lot. I love my parents. My parents express a lot that they love me. My parents compliment me frequently. My parents are proud of me. I think I give energy to my parents. My parents gave me courage when I was going through hardships. My parents enjoy spending time with me. Jean-Jacques Rousseau once said, essence is defined by activity. The essence of an adolescent or a child experience is defined by the kind of family activities that take place, by which we ensure that adolescents come up with experiences which are then articulated in these terms. Going ahead, the effect of parental networks, we can see, is relatively small in comparison to that of peer networks. There are many studies which suggest that children do not always evaluate parental interventions as positive if the nature of your interaction with your child is only about the smartphone addiction and doesn't have a larger context and universe. And that parental mediation may not always be articulated, justified, and expressed in a sensitive manner. Children are rather more vulnerable to and conscious of their friends' approval and disapproval than their parents. And despite previous research that focuses on parental strict involvement, this result implies that securing children's autonomous peer networks might be more essential to prevent smartphone addiction beyond direct parental intervention. Accounting and controlling for psychological causes of smartphone addiction, for example, stress and depression, parents or guardians' perception of children's smartphone using behavior, and online social engagement may provide a more comprehensive understanding of smartphone addiction. Future research, therefore, should examine how and why some children lack social resources and how interventions may focus on enriching support networks rather than diagnosing psychological symptoms. And this is what parents need to do. Again, at the risk of sounding repetitious, in the reality of COVID, use the smartphone to actually build social resources, be in touch with the extended family. FaceTime, WhatsApp videos, how are you doing out there? Interesting stuff that you did today. So that social skills, social connectedness, and social cohesion are maintained, and you mitigate, therefore, any negative effects that smartphone addiction may have. This is also related to mother and father attachment, and smartphone addiction, which is significantly correlated with stress. And what about parents' demonstration of addictive behaviors with smartphones? Those parents who themselves have smartphone use have more difficulties in regulating their young children's use of devices. And finally, I would like to present to you the development and validation of the parental smartphone use management scale. And this is something that one would recommend to all parents. This is a scale to measure parents' perceived self-efficacy on managing their children's smartphone use. Look at reactive management, proactive management, and monitoring and the differences. These are the Alpha Cronbach scores. And this is what parents would need to do. I manage my child's smartphone use to prevent it from negatively affecting his daily life. Routine formation and an agreement. I manage how and to what extent my child spends money on his or her own smartphone. Liquidity, money management, life skills training. I don't allow my child to use a smartphone while doing homework. Is this realistic during COVID online education? Arguable. I manage my child's smartphone use outside the house. I effectively manage when my child can and cannot use a smartphone. I manage my child's activities to prevent him from breaking laws. When my child is spending too much money on the smartphone, I manage his smartphone effectively. Now, these are reactive, not recommended. I don't dismiss my child when communicating with him or her about smartphone use. More proactive, more validating. I don't create family tension as a result of enforcing smartphone. Going back to what I said, relationship, communication, other experiences of family rituals, memories, creating new memories of fun time together. I discuss and reason with my child. I don't get angry. I communicate with my child effectively and explain, and I actively learn new information and skills to manage my child's smartphone use. And finally, I know who my child is within and talking to. And if a child is open, and if you have an open relationship with your children, why would they not respond. Take-home messages. Parental mediation regarding children's smartphone use, the role of protection, motivation, and parenting styles. Parental mediation is a type of behavior that could protect children against the negative use based on the protection motivation theory. Parents do not know how to correctly respond to their children spending time learning, and the range of rules for children often stretches from total ban to permission to use the device at any time of the day. This use, access to digital devices, encouragement or punishment is not a good way to go forward. Findings indicate that authoritative parents are more likely to engage in interpretative mediation and content restrictions through democratic methods. More importantly, parents mediate children's smartphone usage, whether it's cartoons, whether it's playing games or smartphone, using the co-use and active strategies of parental mediation. General parenting styles such as emotional warmth, parental positive regard, as opposed to parental rejection and hostility and overprotection, is an important issue to keep in mind, and these have to be included as potential covariates in any kind of approach that we use, whether it's intervention or research. And parents' own dependence on mobile phones may also influence decision-making around children's mobile use. Friends, we are growing up with the Google, and there are component models of addiction, and we live in a consumer socialization society. And this is something that we would need to keep in mind as we basically speak about smartphone use and parenting. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Shant and Savita, for your very kind words of introduction. What an honor and a pleasure to share this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shanti Bala, would you like to conduct the question answer session? Then I could just in the end sum up, give one or two comments.
Okay. Can be done. Anybody in the panel who would like to ask any clarification, any comments, any supplements, can start now, please.
Do you have any questions in the chat box?
Yeah, there are some questions in chat box which I could take. A question that Jayaprakash has put as mental health professionals, how can we help the helpless parents in adolescent smartphone addiction, and how to motivate adolescents? This issue of motivating adolescents was also a question put by Anirban Ray in response to Manoj's presentation. And I want to explain a strategy, whether it's smartphone use or any other form of difficult, challenging behavior, that context establishment, consensus building, motivate. What does context establishment mean? That if an adolescent says, I don't have any issues, or if you ask the adolescent, how come you're here? And the response is, how do I know? You ask them, they dragged me here. The context itself is not established. So how do you establish a context in a democratic, gentle way? Consensus building. I agree that anger is a problem. I agree smartphone use is a problem, but it's not as much as they make it out to be. Or I agree. So consensus building. Now, consensus also needs to be built around whether parental anxiety and helplessness comes from a ideological anxiety that they have about smartphone use. But the kid is doing well otherwise. He's doing well in studies. He's very compassionate. He's in contact with the family. So what is the problem? The problem is because you think he should not be spending 6 hours in doing, gaming or stuff there. But if there's a serious problem in academics, or the child is a loner, or there is some other morbidity, then it's a separate issue. Motivation enhancement are the same kind of motivational strategies that we use. We figure out, is this kid and the family together in the pre-contemplation phase? Are they in the contemplation phase? Can be democratically agreed. This is not about telling you stop using the mobile phone. This is about time management. This is about life skills. This is about other aspects of your life. We are not even talking about smartphone issues. And then finally, insight facilitation too. And the kid says, see, I know I should not be doing this. I should be spending some more time, but I don't know why this is happening. I can't help it then. So is there some other issue? Is there an anxiety? Is there a self-esteem issue? Is there a self-image issue? Is there a social affirmation and a social connectedness issue? And is this therefore a crutch that the adolescent is using to overcome some other issue of selfhood and personhood and identity? So that's the kind of stuff that we would do. So thank you, Jaiprakash, for raising the question. Suresh Kumar has a question. Thank you very much for your affirmation, Suresh. Many parents are themselves are not using technology responsibly and expect a quick fix solution to their children's smartphone addiction. How to tackle this? And this is what I said, that where parenting is concerned, if you're yourself using the smartphone quite a bit, then you're not exactly setting a good role model for. So what we do in assessment is really look at how this family's day actually plays out. Who are the members in this family? What's the house like? What do they do collectively? How does the father spend his time? How does the mother spend his time? Is there any time which is known as the we time, where the family sets aside their mobile phones, even if it is for 15 minutes a day, to listen to music together, or to cook together, or to put on some music and dance, so that you offset the kind of issues so that's the kind of stuff that Suresh, that we would really look for. Then there is, there are a lot of questions coming in. Prakhar Jain, what should parents be advised when they complain that 3 to 4-year-old children don't eat if not seeing YouTube? See, you have put them into that pattern. Please, let's understand, even dysfunctional families have patterns. A pattern is a very nice thing, but even dysfunctional families have patterns. So when children have feeding problems and you use viewing as a prop, instead of storytelling or playfulness, see, there is a word which is wonderful, and that word is Leela. Leela is playfulness. And instead of using this as a crutch, if you slowly fade it out by other forms of playfulness, you would be able to deal with this thing about the complaint that 4-year-old child does not eat, if you're not seeing the YouTube, because you've set that pattern. The reliability and validity of the parental scale and availability in the Hindi version, Dr. Gurvinder Pal, I'm not very sure about that. I would have to really look into it, and offhand, I'm not aware whether it has been translated and its validity, but I'm happy to look into it and revert.
You could take just a couple more questions, because then we may, the pressure of time, conclude it, and people can ask questions. You can respond to them individually.
I will just table them, Savita. Biological basis of attention impairment in long-term use smartphone, a very important issue. I may not be, let's just register it as an important thing. Standard practice of giving the phone to children while the child is throwing a tantrum. Is it the good practice or not? Of course it's not. And management of temper tantrums. There are many simple management strategies that are available. I have taken the liberty to put on chat our website, www.nimhanschildproject.in. Also my new project, which is on child protection and mental health. A lot of these techniques are given in this. Ranjan Bhattacharya, on the flip side of the coin, what are the impact of parents' mobile phone use on parent-child interaction? Significant impact, and this is what literature is constantly showing, that in several ways. One is you're not managing family time properly. Second, you're not setting an example. And how can it be right for you and wrong for your children? It's even ideologically and from an ethical perspective, it is not right. Children seem to learn faster while they use smartphone as a tool is my observation, Bijon Singh says. Bijon, children of these days are digital natives. Savita and I are digital immigrants. We've had to learn this. So somewhere we will have to find this balance going ahead. And I said, COVID came at a particularly bad time. And somewhere I think that the Indian Association of Child and Adolescent Mental Health, which Savita has so ably run for so many years, may want to set up a special task force to look into this, and Kshitij, as well as Kishore, who are the office bearers, perhaps we can do this as an activity and take it forward. Like I said, COVID is going to last for a very long time. I see a lot of questions kind of coming in, but it's 7:12, and I will hand over to Savita and to Shanti to close the session.
Thank you very much, Shekhar. This was very enlightening and very, very stimulating and informative discussion. Of course, there are no easy and straightforward answers. All of us like to look for a very simple and straightforward answers in the form of yes, no, this much and not that much, and so on and so forth. But coming to parenting and smartphone use or even technology use, excessive use in children and adolescents, there aren't any simple straightforward answers. I think what happens is that we create an opportunity or a facility or a activity for children and adolescents which is productive, enjoyable, and then we want to control it because children, they kind of overshoot its usage and indulge in more than necessary or what is advisable, and we want to then control it, and we don't know how to control it, and there are whole lots of different strategies and methods. I must say that these strategies and methods of parenting, although we mental health professionals have a certain kind of a way of examining, looking at it, but societies and cultures have their own inbuilt mechanisms of controlling behavior, what they think is undesirable or not accepted in a given culture. And they are very, very effective methods and means of actually controlling these undesirable behaviors. And but the other thing is that, as Shekhar said, I think we have raised this issue, and the President, Dr. Kishore Gujjar, has also agreed to come up with some kind of a statement on behalf of ICAM on the excessive use of technology and how to handle it. Some kind of a statement on behalf of ICAM as to what we should, what should be the guidelines for parents and for children and for professionals in permitting the use of technology and smartphone and internet and so on in the Indian context. And we look forward to kind of working on it and coming up with some kind of white paper or some kind of a basic statement, position statement on behalf of ICAM. With this, I would like to thank Shekhar very much for a very, very enlightening talk. And I will now hand over to Shanti Bala to say concluding remarks and close the session, please.
Dr. Shekhar Seshadri, it was just a beautiful, very crisp and full of information. And I could, the take-home message, there were lots of lists, but I could see that parental addiction, we know, smartphone addiction definition and the gist of it. So parental control, does it work? Not much. So what is important is a good parent and child relationship, a satisfying relationship, and autonomy for the child. So we have got lots of work to be done by the parents to counsel them and how to handle them. It's not when they become adolescent or when they become addicted to smartphone do we intervene, but it's from the start, from the parenting, from infancy onwards. So that's a take-home message, I feel. Dr. Seshadri, it was really enlightening. I'm so privileged to be a chairperson when you speak. So I feel so good. Thank you.
And thank you. And over to the organizers, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Savita. Pleasure always.
Thank you, Chairperson, ma'am, Dr. Sabitra Malhotra, Dr. K. Santibala, and thanks to Dr. Shekhar Seshadri for such an enlightening and informative talk. And also thanks for keeping the time.